related to current affairs at a rate of 10%. Black Indigenous history and Black Israelite theory. He was one of the leading content creators in the Black conscious community with 250,000 subscribers. Another possible recipient of GOP donor funds, Dane Calloway, who actually made the same pivot back in June. Circumstantial evidence suggests the research guy might have accepted payments from a conservative political action committee in exchange for posting content that influences indigenous people to support Donald Trump for president. I say circumstantial evidence because there's no smoking gun due to the fact that no regulations require this type of PAC spending to be reported to the Federal Election Commission, or FEC. The same circumstances implicate Dane Calloway as another possible recipient of GOP donor funds over an even longer period of time.
All right, y'all, I'm back with another video. So I got something to say, and y'all not gonna like it, and I don't care. But a racist black guy tries to fight a white Trump supporter. It's crazy. But y'all can just see what's going on. The body language is there. It's gonna tell a whole story. And then afterwards, we're going to let this white guy speak, and he's going to give you his version of what happened in the store.
He has his shirt on, but he ain't allowed to have his shirt on.
But the women in the background is saying that the black dude got angry because he saw the white man with the Trump shirt on. The black dude just came up, just called the white man racist for nothing, and you not racist. Well, I'll tell you.
This comes just 3 months after the research guy completely overhauled his content, switching his platform from discussing the hidden history of the Negro to now covering the news, politics, and other current affairs. The research guy built his YouTube audience to the tune of 250,000 subscribers by doing content like what you see here. You're looking at what his channel's homepage looked like as of April 20th, 2024, and the titles of these videos exemplify the type of content that used to be found on his channel. These are titles like Ancient Black American Tribes They Tried to Hide. Another one says, Proof the Bible Does Not Come from the 42 Laws of Ma'at. There's one called Black Hebrew Mayans, Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids. You'll notice an even mix of content exploring Black Indigenous history and Black Israelite theory. You'll even notice one live stream on the page, ironically entitled, Why We Don't Need to Vote for 2024. Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, ostensibly advocating a withdrawal from political involvement on the basis that neither candidate had the best interest of the Negro at heart. Out of 10 topics on the page, only one was even remotely related to current affairs at a rate of 10%. Exactly 5 months later, on September 20th, his content looked like this. Kamala Harris rejected by black women voters. Look at the next one. It's over. Donald Trump won the election. Then there's this. Proof. They're eating the cats. Donald Trump. Now you'll notice he still also has a video called The Black Hebrews They Hide From Us, and another called Proof Black Americans Are Not Africans. That's going from a 90-10 ratio in April favoring Negro identity topics over current affairs to a 20-80 ratio in September, going the opposite direction. So he pivoted his content in the early fall, which was when the election reached the home stretch, because of course election day was November 5th. September also happens to be the same month in which the earliest comment on the Research Guy's community page appears. That's because despite his channel growing over many years, he has actually deleted everything on his community page prior to September 2024. Then in October, he actually deleted all his Negro identity content so his channel could be completely dedicated to politics and news reactions. He rebranded, and the slogan on his logo reads "Politics and Reactions." He actually notified followers on his community page by saying point blank that he would no longer do Black Indigenous or Black Hebrew Israelite content. He has since deleted that post also. His justification for doing this was that the niche for his content is saturated, so he wants to do something new all of a sudden. Keep in mind that his original channel description boasted of the research guy dedicating years to that research regarding Negro identity. Yet during the election, he suddenly threw all that away just because the niche was saturated, even though it was saturated partly with his own content. He was one of the leading content creators in the Black conscious community with 250,000 subscribers, posting almost every day. Research Guy constantly talked about his passion for the spiritual and historical truths of our ancestors and the fact that he'd been in the game longer than Dane Calloway. Now, because he feels like it's getting a little crowded, he's abandoning that truth. He's done with the mission given to him by the ancestors just like that, just because it's a little crowded in this space. Or was there financial incentive to change his content to a more lucrative category? And why is it specifically pro-Trump content? Don't forget that before his platform shifted, he did a video about how neither party was worth our time in the election. Yet he has been repeatedly uploading pro-Trump content. He went from being the objective observer to choosing a side, which was what he previously told us not to do. All this, and he coincidentally made the switch in October, right when both presidential campaigns were making their final pushes, spending big money to sway voters in the final weeks. As a local news reporter, I've covered campaign finance regulations in my state, so I can speak from experience when I explain the following. Lawmakers and governors build large teams to campaign for your vote in every municipal, state, and federal election. And in the U.S., political campaigns have been increasingly dependent for decades now on donor contribution to pay staff, to pay for advertising, to pay for voter research, to pay for legal services, and to pay a variety of other such expenditures. These donors, however, are usually individual people, and the bigger money for high-profile campaigns comes through political action committees, or PACs. These aren't individuals, they're organizations, and laws like the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971 mandate that PACs can't contribute directly to candidates or their campaigns. That law is reinforced by the rulings from big deal 2010 court cases. The most infamous case was Citizens United versus the FEC, which clarified the legal precedent that organizations can raise and spend unlimited funds for independent expenditures as long as they don't contribute directly to candidates in federal elections. In other words, the biggest spenders in an election have to find other places to put their money besides the candidate's hands, but they still want it to be something that helps the candidate as much as possible. That's where surrogates come into play. In the public sector, campaign surrogates are usually PACs and corporations who spend money on things that benefit a candidate so that the candidate's campaign doesn't have to spend anything on those things. A super PAC is simply a collection of PACs and corporations who all do this with the same goals in mind. And a PAC is a tax-exempt group of execs, union leaders, activists, interest groups, and other like-minded entities. Make sense?
Hey y'all. First of all, like and subscribe to the channel, but also, Unahia is recruiting, and if you don't know what Unahia is, we're a grassroots activist group lobbying Congress to amend a bill to require education and research to acknowledge the Negro origins of Aboriginal groups of North America. If any of you have it to give, please support the campaign using the QR code on your screen, join the campaign with a donation, and if you have the time, you can even join our staff to help guide the organization, not just for this campaign, but also future endeavors. Don't speak about it, be about it. Let's go.
The 2024 general election involved an unprecedented level of focus on social media influencers and YouTubers in order to sway voter blocks. Both sides utilized this tactic heavily, but the Republican campaign surrogates did it specifically with a focus on getting black voters to either support Trump or just not vote at all. And to accomplish this, these surrogates relied on agencies like Good Influence, who actually rebranded just in time for the final leg of the 2024 election. I know because the CEO of Good Influence follows me on LinkedIn. The company used to be called @Advocacy, but they revamped with a whole new website. I remember the post he shared in May last year where he reintroduced the company to all of us who are in his network. And in that post, he described Good Influence as, quote, the home for hundreds of news and issue-focused creators online, end quote. Peep that. The content creators they work with are those who make content about things happening in the news, current affairs channels. There are dozens of agencies like this who could be considered major players on the political stage, and just FYI, creators don't just have to be found and recruited by the agencies either. They can actually go straight to the websites of companies like these and apply to be a part of their programs as creators. And if they're accepted, content creators get paid to talk about things that the agency's clients want discussed with their audience, because the agency knows what kind of audience the creator has. The rebrand was in May because Good Influence knew it was good timing ahead of the final push in the election, which is when they get the most business. Campaigns spend massive figures at the last minute, and this was still 6 months out, which was plenty of time. The research guy didn't pivot for another 4 months after this. On October 26, just 10 days before Election Day, the Washington Post published this headline, "The New Dark Money: How Influencers Get Paid Big Bucks to Court Your Vote." The lead of the piece reads, quote, "Political campaigns and their surrogates are pouring millions of dollars into social media influencers with scant regulatory oversight or public transparency as they embrace a marketing tactic that has revolutionized the U.S. economy." That phrase, scant regulatory oversight, is the reason why there will probably never be a smoking gun on the research guy. We only have circumstantial evidence because these surrogates don't need to comply with anything when it comes to reporting where money goes when it doesn't go to the candidates. That's why they call it dark money. This is a lengthy article, but if you skip 2/3 of the way down, it addresses YouTube specifically. Quote, firms working on influencer campaigns in politics view it as the next frontier in political campaigning. Email defined the 2008 election, social media was embraced widely in 2012, and campaigns sought to leverage SMS text messages in 2016, said Josh Cook, president of Good Influence. Influencers on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram are defining 2024. We see it as a natural progression of where attention is, said Cook, who served as President Barack Obama's Pennsylvania digital director in 2012. For the dollars to follow, that makes sense. Cook declined to comment on specific clients, but the firm works with YouTubers who talk about the news and TikTok accounts focused on the LGBTQ+ community, as well as on teachers and parents. Payments for influencers can range widely based on the campaign, the size of their following, and the engagement they receive on their posts. People First has paid anywhere from $200 for what is known as a micro-influencer to up to about $100,000 for influencers with millions of followers for political posts. This year, Davis said, adding, it's harder to get people to talk about politics, so sometimes there's even a premium on that. If the research guy's subscriber count was weighed for a monetary value based on what's discussed in this excerpt about People First and Good Influence, he could easily earn $25,000 for a set number of posts within a range of news-related topics. That's somebody's annual earnings at an entry-level job somewhere, and he would get it in a single transaction on top of everything he makes from the YouTube partnership program, plus his credit repair business, which he advertises in his channel and video descriptions. In order to sustain continuity for his channel with the algorithm, it would behoove him to change his content long term. This may even explain why he first started by mixing his old content with his new content at a ratio that greatly favored the political news reactions, because he was providing proof of concept for an agency who ultimately decided to pay him for his content, possibly on the condition that he removed the controversial content about Negro identity. Here's another reason why the research guy's platform pivot is so sus. In doing all this, he was ironically copying Dane Calloway, who actually made the same pivot back in June. Dane started 2024 with videos about ancient American giants, Black Americans being indigenous, the invention of black and white people, white enslavement, and black celebrities claiming Indian heritage. By June, his content was all videos with Biden or Trump in the thumbnails, and even the exceptions to that focused on Pope Francis's words about American Indians and U.S. immigration policy. The latter was obviously a huge election topic. Ever since June, Dane has only released 5 videos that had anything to do with Negro Indian identity out of a total of 48 on his primary channel. That's just 10.4%. So just shy of 90% of his content since June has been political news reactions. What makes this ironic is that Dane pivoted first in June, and the research guy pivoted 3 months later in September, which makes it seem like he copied Dane. You'd think he wouldn't be caught dead copying Dane after what had recently happened between them. That's wildly hypocritical after his very public blow up, ranting about Dane copying his content on several videos. Research Guy did that live stream in what month? June. He lambasted Dane for copying his content in the second week of June. which we covered here on this channel on June 11th, with screenshots of the post that he promptly deleted the same day. Dane then immediately switched to political news reactions, and 3 months later, the research guy switched to political news reactions. Research guy initially humbled himself to apologize very briefly about letting the frustrations of how Dane competes with him get under his skin. He admitted he was a little embarrassed that he let himself succumb to petty anger. Do you think after an embarrassing display like that, a hothead like the research guy would want to blatantly, hypocritically do exactly what he just accused Dane Calloway of doing after all that hype last summer? Not unless there was significant incentive to swallow his pride for something he felt was worthwhile. That same Washington Post article we looked at earlier cites an anonymous source from the Trump campaign saying that they usually give Trump hats to content creators whom their surrogates have tapped for pro-Trump news reactions. In case you didn't notice it on our thumbnail for this video, the research guy actually does live streams with one of those hats on. Those hats are just one of several hats in the mix of campaign swag given to supporters. The reason why the research guy dramatically shifted focus to news reactions in September before completely rebranding his platform was to provide proof of concept. He needed data to demonstrate what his real audience retention would be if he pivoted to a new form of content. Any influencer marketing agency worth its salt would want that data tested before putting a dollar figure on his influence. Why? Because he wasn't originally doing the kind of content they're looking for. September was likely a retention test to generate a metric portfolio for an agency paid by a Trump campaign surrogate retained to locate black community influencers. The research guy's value was the fact that his audience was a bunch of black people who already think outside the box and are already disillusioned with the Democratic Party. It's one thing to identify as a proud conservative in his new channel slogan, which I actually respect. It's another thing to actually support the Republican Party. Many of us aren't conscious enough to see that the Democrats are manipulating our people, but any blind man can see that the people who most blatantly support our destruction by defending police brutality or referring to the days of black codes and Jim Crow as the era when America was great, those people are consistently identifying as Republicans. The research guy originally advocated abstaining from supporting either party, but what he's doing does actually help a specific party. Exit polls show that Trump doubled his support from black voters in 2024 compared to 2020, according to Al Jazeera. His campaign strategy worked. The black vote is the most powerful voter bloc in the country. We're the ones who forced Hillary Clinton to sit down so Barack Obama could take the Democratic primary in 2008 when it was supposed to be Hillary's turn. When we want something bad enough, neither party can stop us. Conservative whites on YouTube have praised Dane Calloway because they love his theory about the slave narrative being told in reverse because it makes whites feel like they're the real victims. Dane Calloway occasionally even includes clips of conservative whites lauding him in one of his intro sequences.
Look up Dane Calloway and watch his fucking shows. That man, Dane Calloway on YouTube, oh my God. He is fucking beyond brilliant. The research he does, whoo, he goes way deep into this shit.
It's never about what's wrong with the other candidate. Trump won us over to his side based on legitimate grievances we have with the manipulative Democratic Party, but it was done by paying thousands of our influencers large sums to bend their content in a certain direction. Those of them who propagate the truth on behalf of the ancestors should have been above all this, yet instead they consented to put the truth away. The truth with a capital T. The truth is the only thing that matters in our existence. I have enormous respect for our scholars and for anyone bold enough and wise enough to follow the call of the ancestors to do this work. When I covered the feud between Dane and Research Guy, I cut it short and only hit the finer points because my main point was that the whole thing was petty and needed to be squashed so we could get back to the truth. I want our people to act on what they've learned instead of just standing around talking about the truth. The truth isn't something you know, it's something you live. However, the reason we need to talk about this now is because our scholars have abandoned the truth. Our leaders are no longer leading us back to the sacred fire. For the sake of wealth, they have redirected us back to the way of the pale face, and that is unforgivable. Nothing is worth selling what is sacred. Nothing. Our leaders and every single one of us must put our money where our mouths are. Join Unahiya with me. They're doing real work to get federal recognition for all of us. Don't just assume it can't be done. It can. And both Dane and Research Guy need to join Unahiya too. My understanding is that the Unahiya campaign had already been in contact with the Research Guy last year, but he never did anything. What American Indians need in politics is not more reactions, but rather more action. I'm supporting it, and you should be too. They need volunteers, and if you're super knowledgeable about our history, like the Research Guy or Dane Calloway, you're going to be an extremely valuable asset to the campaign. This is how we return to the sacred fire.